Hey guys, I think I really like Silksong. I know I usually make Celeste content on this channel, but I'm not yet finished obsessing over Silksong ever since it came out, and I've personally been very interested in making an area rankings video for quite a while now. I think the areas of this game are one of its strongest aspects, with Silksong's world building being really well made and extensive. Of course, not all areas are made equal, so I think it would be fun to compare all areas against each other to decide which ones are the best, in my opinion. First thing that's important to clear up, how are we defining what is an area? This is actually much more complicated than it seems, with a lot of conflicting ideas on what counts as an area and what doesn't. This list is going to be going off of exclusively each area that has a map on the map preview screen, so if there's an area on this screen right here, it will be on this list. The only exception will be the Wisp Thicket, which doesn't have its own map, but I consider it to be distinct enough to be counted as its own area, but don't expect Wisp Thicket to get very high on the list anyway. Choosing a definitive worst area in this game is kind of hard because I think every area has many redeeming qualities that make them all fun and interesting in their own ways, but Weavenest Atla is probably the least spectacular out of all of them. I've always viewed this area as an extended Weavenest that for some reason has its own map, and that's because it pretty much is. The biggest thing that sticks out in this area is Eva, who helps upgrade the player's crests and also grants them Vesti crests, some of the best optional upgrades in the game. Aside from that, there's also a section where you go beneath the Moss Grotto and even fight two Moss Mothers at the same time. There's really not much to gain from here, so do it for the fun and whimsy of it, I guess. Weavenest Atla is simply too lacking in anything to get put up higher on the list, but it feels like it shouldn't even be its own separate area anyway, so that's not awfully surprising. Number 22, Wisp Thicket. I talked about this area, what, a minute ago now? Yeah, I told you this one wouldn't get so high. Wisp Thicket is a cool area when it comes to the atmosphere and lore of this area, where the bugs created a new idol to worship over Grandmother Silk. At least I think it's something like that. I don't know much about the lore of this game. Unfortunately, these silly bugs made quite the underwhelming idol, because the Father of the Flame is a pretty limited boss fight, and more so feels like a glorified platforming section at times. The rest of Wisp Thicket suffers a similar fate to Weavenest Atla, that is that it's far too lacking to be put any higher. It's so small that you don't even get a separate map, it's kinda just wedged in between Greymoor and the Underworks, and once you go through the area once, there isn't much more reason to come back to it once you upgrade your abilities. At least if you actually found the flea your first time round, unlike me who only found it in late Act 3. Number 21, the Cradle. This is the last of the extremely tiny and lacking areas, I swear. The only thing that even puts the Cradle this high is because I like the sense of finality it gives you. It's an extremely important area to the narrative and serves as a final frontier of your journey before facing off with the final boss at the peak of the Citadel. And that's just cool as hell, right? Unfortunately, that doesn't save the area from being very bare bones otherwise. There aren't even any collectibles or anything to get here. You essentially just go to the area to fight the final boss and then leave once you're in Act 3. The Cradle only just barely escaped last place due to its aura points, because counting the Cradle as its own area is almost like counting the Black Egg from the first game as its own area. And I guess if you count the surface as part of the Cradle, then it's got that too. Number 20, Wormways. This area is simple, but honestly still kind of fun to go through, and I don't think it would have been as high if it weren't for its expansion in Act 3. Throughout the entire game, the Wormways are very much an optional area. You don't even need to step a single foot in the area to achieve both normal and true endings. From my knowledge, there are two main ways to enter this area, either by using the simple key from Mossholm, or by entering from above by dropping from Shellwood. In Acts 1 and 2, the area gives you some pretty basic upgrades, a flea, some plasmium tools from the alchemist guy, and a rip-off Sharp Shadow that does an underwhelming amount of damage. Act 3 made me appreciate this area much more after the alchemist guy's body got completely overrun by plasmium, which began to seep out and infect the entire area, transforming it into a completely new plasmium theme. Full Lifeblood core room expansion is real after all. Also, the theming of this area beyond that is kinda interesting. I like how it feels like there's very little urban development to these caverns, leaving nature and the worms to carve out their own tunnels through the dirt. Number 19, Putrified Ducts. It hurts so much putting such a beautiful area this low down on the list, but unfortunately Putrified Ducts just aren't as interesting as I wish they were. I was a massive fan of the Royal Waterways from Hollow Knight, and so it makes me really happy to see an area that can match its vibe so well. It's just unfortunate that this area takes maybe half an hour to fully explore on your first playthrough. The biggest highlight of this area for me are the enemy designs. Duct suckers feel extremely intimidating, especially when they're chasing you through a small cramped corridor, and the enemies that hang their tongue out to catch you are really creatively made. Also, the Spit Squid took the design of a Primal Aspid, the enemy that everyone hated for some reason, and made it more erratic and annoying to deal with, and that is just so respectable to me. God, Team Cherry is just so good at pissing people off with their games, I love it. Oh yeah, and this area also has Fleetopia, which has probably some of the highest replayability out of any other feature in the game. Aside from that, there really isn't that much stuff to do in the Putrified Ducts, so as much as I hate to do it, this area will have to go to number 19. I promise I still love you. Number 18, Hunter's March. This is the first area that truly made many players rage quit the first time they got there, and while I didn't quite get to the point of quitting the game, it definitely did annoy me quite a bit. The enemies in Hunter's March have way more moves than they should. Like, you see this random guy here? Yeah, he has the same moveset as Hornet 1 from the first game. Many people also like complaining about the platforming, but I don't find it nearly as awful. Even with the Hunter's Crest, like, I'm sure most of you know what a 45-degree angle looks like. The rest of the area is pretty short and doesn't have a whole lot of content. There's the Savage Beastfly, which is genuinely a really frustrating boss fight and doesn't even give you a good crest. And also the Carmelita statue, which leads you to the Carmelita boss, which isn't even fought in the Hunter's March. Overall, this area was just a little too short and lacking in content for my liking. Oh yeah, and screw Scar Guards, they suck so much. Number 17, The Abyss. Won't you look at that, we really have returned to Hollow Knight with this one. Aside from the lore implications of every kingdom in the bug world having the same Abyss area, this area is kind of barren and empty. But damn, the atmosphere is just so good here. The Abyss is easily the darkest area in the game, and the whole time you're going through it, it feels like you're getting further and further away from bug civilization up on the surface. The entire escape sequence with the rising lava is also super fun, and a really great way to introduce using the Silksong. Too bad it's never used in any interesting ways again. Every area past the Abyss now is going to be quite content heavy and feel like actual fully fledged areas, which brings us to our number 16 spot. The Blasted Steppes feel like a much more violent and tuned up version of the Howling Cliffs from Hollow Knight in many ways. For one, the wind actually poses more of a threat than it did in Hollow Knight, especially with how much it pushes you around while you're drifting with the cloak ability. The aura of this area is also just amazing. It's the final ascent before reaching the Citadel, and I think the game did a great job encapsulating this feeling. This area is a little bit on the annoying side for playing, considering you have a ton of annoying enemies like Sandcarvers and Drizznits. Both boss fights are quite fun and well made in my opinion, those being the Great Conchflies and the Last Judge. Also, the run back to the Last Judge is not even an issue, please stop complaining about it so much. Number 15, the Marrow. Ah yes, the forgotten crossroads of Silksong. The Marrow is near the center of the list because that's straight up what I think of this area. I think it has enough content to make the area feel complete, with tons of secrets and areas opening up as you progress through the game, and the visuals are just interesting enough to not make me get bored. This area is essentially the Forest of Bones that was promised in the original game, revived in a brand new form. And honestly, I would have thought the Forest of Bones would be a much more intimidating area. The Marrow is a surprisingly chill and laid-back area for the atmosphere it portrays. The hardest enemy here are the Skullbrutes, who aren't really too hard to deal with if you know how to pogo or jump. Their biggest threat is scaring off new players with the double damage they deal. Going to the area right before the Marrow, we get to Bone Bottom, the very first area in the game. I should probably clarify when I talk about Bone Bottom, I'm referring to everything in this area, including the Moss Grotto, Moss Home, and the Bone Bottom village itself, in case anyone's confused. This area opens up the game in a really great way. The Moss Grotto feels like a much more welcoming version of King's Pass that introduces you to the fundamental mechanics of the game. The visuals also contribute a lot to this area's placement. It has some of the most vibrant visuals out of the whole game, behind only maybe Verdania or the Coral Tower sub-area, which isn't even a full area. Sad. The actual town of Bone Bottom is extremely small and depressing, and I think this was an intentional design decision. When I first stepped foot in Bone Bottom, I really thought it would function similarly to Dirtmouth, being an ever-expanding town that grows in size throughout the course of the game. But that role was largely taken up by Bellhart up top, which only really leaves Bone Bottom as a small outpost that sits at the bottom of the world, rotting eternally. Oh yeah, and Bellbeast is cool, I guess. Number 13, Bellhart. Oh, and speaking of Bellhart, this area is everything Bone Bottom wished to be, but better. It feels slightly weird ranking Bellhart along with the other areas here because I like Bellhart for a very different reason than I like the other areas. This area doesn't really have much of an exploration aspect, but rather it feels like a town that slowly expands over time, like in a farming sim game or something. The introduction into Bellhart is pretty cool, having an entire cutscene showing the people strung up by some strange being. I wonder if it's a spider. Though it does feel a little short-lived. My favorite part of Bellhart is probably right after you defeat Widow and free the bugs, because it opens up a ton of quests and optional things to do. There's pretty much always something to do in Bellhart despite its small size. Being able to purchase your own bell home that you can decorate and stuff is also not something I would have expected to see from a Hollow Knight game at all, but I can't say I don't think it's pretty cool. Number 12, Sands of Karak. Well, now we've officially made it to the middle of the list. Yippee! The Sands of Karak is always such a sad area to go through. Not because of the lore or anything, but because they completely butchered the Coral Forest area. Like sure, the Coral Tower is fun, but you gotta agree with me that having a couple arenas and a boss is far lamer than a fully fledged area with this amazing looking blue coral theme. Regardless, when talking about the Sands of Karak as it appears in the final release of the game, the gameplay isn't the biggest thing that interests me here, but rather the atmosphere and visual theming. I think Team Cherry managed to make the Sands of Karak have a great somber theme with its usage of music and visuals. I will say that the cooool platforming segments that only stay up on screen for a limited time are really fun to play, and were definitely the highlight of this area for me gameplay wise. Maybe some people are raving over the raging Conchfly boss fight, but nothing else here particularly stood out to me, except for the Coral Tower of course. Rest in peace Coral Forest. Number 11, the Sinner's Road. If we were making a list of areas that piss me off the most, Sinner's Road would be up at the top. However, I can't deny that this area is cool as hell to play. Finding the Sinner's Road for the first time gives the sense that you just discovered the plague-infested underbelly of Greymoor, and I really like that vibe it gives you. All throughout the Sinner's Road you'll find maggot waters, rotting infrastructure, and cages of muckroaches, which, while being incredibly frustrating to fight, still help to sell the theming of this area. Having the Sinner's Road being easy just wouldn't do the area justice for what it's trying to portray, so I absolutely think it was the right choice on Team Cherry's part to make it so punishing. Number 10, the Slab. The Slab is up here so high solely due to its uniqueness factor. Never would have I thought you would have been captured in a cage and sent to a prison escape sequence in a game like Silksong, but I'm so glad that it did. The bugs working for the Slab will capture you at pretty much the worst possible moments, which only makes it more frustrating when the next 30 minutes you're trying to break out of prison. Which is awesome! Theming wise, this area also does well. If you first enter the Slab in Act 1, it almost gives you a preview of what the Citadel is like. It overall has an extremely sinister vibe, something which not even Deepness from Hollow Knight could make me feel. It also has one of the coolest and most stylish boss fights in the entire game, Broodmother, so it gets bonus points from me. Number 9, Verdania. As a completely optional Act 3 area, I wouldn't have expected Verdania to be as fleshed out and vast as it is. When you first discover this completely new area through a crack in the wall in Greymoor, you wonder, why the hell is this thing even here? There ain't a damn thing to do. However, once you acquire the Needlein upgrade and enter the Memory of the Green Prince, you start to see that this area was more than just an abandoned cavern at one point. Lost Verdania reveals what Verdania was like before it fell to ruin, being a luscious green underground ecosystem, similar to something like the Moss Grotto. It's one thing having an area have a hidden backstory to it, but being able to explore its old state in the form of a memory is even cooler. Only thing is that the Pale Stag boss sucks. It's not fun and doesn't require much actual skill to beat. Number 8, Deep Docks. Despite being so early into the game, the Deep Docks have solidified themselves as one of the coolest areas in the game. The visuals again diverge from Hollow Knight in a really awesome way. Going through this area almost feels like exploring an underwater submarine, except it's actually under lava instead. Something about the miner bugs all over the place and industrial infrastructure makes this area feel so alive and complex, like it's an actual functioning mining economy within Farloom. I don't have a whole lot more to add, so I'll just leave it there. Deep Docks is just cool enough to earn a place this high up. Number 7, Farfields. This area became like twice as cool in its Act 3 expansion, but I won't get ahead of myself here yet. Reaching this area for the first time is relatively chill. You explore around, kill Hokers for a bit, and earn yourself a cool cloak, before suddenly being confronted with the 4th chorus, one of the coolest looking fights in the game. This area is already great in Act 1, serving as a nice introduction to the Drifter's Cloak, along with featuring some side content here and there. However, its expansion in Act 3 is where it gets really good in my opinion. Not only does this area look visually amazing with its huge open fields, but it also has one of the best boss fights in the game. Scarsinger Carmelito. Did you think I would say Gur the Outcast? Yeah, no, we don't talk about him here. And I can keep glazing Carmelita's fight, talking about how the attacks, visual design, music is so cool and all, but I think I've said enough about the Farfields. Number 6, Underworks. The opening sequence for this area is one of my favorites out of any area in the game. You're led into the Grand Gate, expecting to reach the Citadel, only for the elevator to collapse beneath you and send you down to the Underworks. Everything about the Underworks shows that the Citadel is not nearly as holy of a place as everyone has been making it out to be. The Underworks of the Citadel are grey, dirty, dangerous, rusted, the benches cost goddamn rosaries just to sit on them. The Underworks are very clearly a place that doesn't respect its workers, simply using them for cheap labor to maintain the Citadel. There are quite a lot of subsections to this area that I liked as well, such as the Cauldron and the Workshop area with the Architect NPC. This area is also really large and gets expanded upon throughout the entirety of Act 2, as well as granting the players some of the best abilities in the game, like the Clawline and Cogwork Saw. There are a ton of smaller details I enjoyed as well, like that weird-ass paid sin confession machine you encounter in this room, but I'll leave it there. On to the top 5 now. Number 5, Shellwood. Shellwood is peak art, changed my mind. It's a green and luscious area, but not in a way that seems overly whimsical like the Moss Grotto. It's got a hint of swampiness or potential danger, while not being overly intense like Bilewater. It's almost like a middle ground between the Moss Grotto and Bilewater. Aside from the area simply looking pretty, it's got a lot of cool gameplay mechanics. These include things like the white flowers you pogo, the unique enemy designs, and the Sister Splinter boss fight. On that thought, I think Sister Splinter is hated by so many people, to the point where it even needed to be nerfed. I don't really see why, honestly. This boss fight felt fine to me, but I guess different people just struggle with different things. Number 4, Greymoor. For being quite early in the game, Greymoor really holds up into Acts 2 and 3 as a really great area. Greymoor isn't exactly the City of Tears equivalent in Silksong, but it's located in a pretty similar section of the game and still has the same city theme. City of Tears, however, is very clearly depicted in a way that paints it as beautiful in spite of its dreariness, while Greymoor commits to the grey doom and gloom theming, and I really like that about it. The grey skies, decaying wood buildings, crawls and rats invading every corner, it's almost like walking through Birmingham in the UK. It's also surprisingly expansive. There are many areas which initially are inaccessible, requiring you to return later after acquiring new abilities like the wall jump. Greymoor has everything that I love in a Silksong area. It's big, filled with content, has good atmosphere, and enemies that are just hard enough to where I feel challenged, but not in an overly frustrating way. Number 3, Bilewater. Wait, do not go tell me that I'm stupid in the comments just yet. Just hear me out a bit first. Seeing Bilewater at number 3 here might leave some people confused. After all, what is there to like about Bilewater? It's gross, dark, it has stilkins, it has maggot water that blocks your silk, it has no benches, it has stilkins, the run back is too long, it has stilkins, blah blah blah. This area is literally designed to make you feel pain and torture. Why is it at number 3? Well, that's because it's awesome for that exact reason. I don't know about you, but having an area that's designed to push a player to their absolute limits is an incredibly good way to make a memorable area, and is especially impactful in an already hard game like Silksong. It's so different to an area like Deep Nest. It doesn't make you feel lost or scared, it makes you feel hopeless, angry, filled with rage and spite. A perfect reflection of the area's lore. Now look, I'm not really a lore expert in this game, but from what I know, Bilewater used to be completely crystal clear before the Citadel started dumping its exhaust into its waters, polluting it over time. This understandably inflicted rage upon the area's citizens, as seen in the various lore tablets that talk about the hate felt by the bugs of Bilewater. And now the game wants you to experience that exact hate through its evil design, something which is, in my eyes, an incredibly smart and creative design choice. I don't care how many people this placement pisses off, Bilewater is awesome and I will stand by this forever. Oh god, what have I done? I sincerely hope someone understands me for putting Bilewater this high, please. Don't leave a bunch of hate comments, please! Number 2, Mount Fae. As a Celeste fan, I'm kinda obligated to put Mount Fae up so high, aren't I? But seriously, Mount Fae diverges a lot from the standard of Silksong areas, and that makes it one of the most fun and unique experiences in the game for me. Most areas of Silksong have you exploring an open area with branching paths, secrets, and usually a mix of both platforming and enemy combat. Mount Fae focuses pretty much exclusively on platforming, having very limited enemy encounters and alternate paths, and I absolutely love it for that. The area experiments with Hornet's movement the most out of all the areas, requiring the usage of the harpoon, the wall jump, and even some short sections teaching you how to double jump. The freezing mechanic is also just cool as hell. It adds a level of stress to the platforming that I haven't really seen done before in any other area out of the entire franchise. That's not even mentioning the atmosphere being amazing. I've always wanted to see a snowy area in Hollow Knight, however I was kinda skeptical that we'd see one in Silksong, but damn I am so glad we did. Something about the freezing ice contrasted with the warmth from the fire is so comforting and gave this area an extremely unique vibe, one that certainly cemented itself as one of the greatest areas in the game for me. This area is peak. Literally. Okay, sorry. Let's just move on to number 1. And to no one's surprise, the Citadel wins the top spot of this list. I think this area's placement at the very top is a byproduct of this list considering the Citadel is one whole area, because holy crap there is so much stuff to do here. There are 7 completely distinct regions of the Citadel found here, each with unique theming and enemies. The visuals are also amazing through pretty much the entire area, of course, even despite how distinct each subsection is. I guess while we're here, I'll quickly rank each subdivision against each other and give some reasoning behind it. Number 7, Grand Gate. No idea why this is a sub-area, it's literally just a door, so unless that's your thing, this section is spectacularly unimpressive. Number 6, the Whispering Vaults. I kinda just found this one a little too boring or not noteworthy enough. Sure, it has the NPC that can play back your psalm cylinders, which was kinda cool and offered some additional lore, but the rest of the area is pretty meh to me. Number 5, the High Halls. No, I'm not going to be complaining about the High Halls gauntlet here because I genuinely don't think it's much of an issue. The High Halls is only at number 5 because I didn't find it quite as interesting as the others, but I was still a fan of the aesthetics and platforming segments. Number 4, Memoriam. Really nice concept to have an area attempting to recreate the biodiversity of Farloom. I found it really fun revisiting all the previous areas I've been to, but beyond that it's too lacking in actual content to be any higher. Number 3, the White Ward. This area is insanely cool and probably would have scored high if it was ranked individually. Some of the best atmosphere I've seen in this game, and again, doesn't seem like the type of thing you'd see in a Hollow Knight game, but I am so damn glad that it does exist. Number 2, the cooool chambers. This is the biggest sub area and also probably the nicest visually. I'd say if one area was to represent the essence of the Citadel, it would be this one. And finally, number 1, Cogwork Core. Literally just up here because it's so much fun to play. It has some of the best platforming in the game, maybe only matched by Mount Fae, and the music hypes you up every time you make your way through the segment. To make a final statement on the Citadel as a whole, this area is so big and so full of diversity, it could probably constitute the entire map of a small indie game, and the fact that it's just one area out of 23 others is what comfortably puts this area onto number 1 on my list. So there you go, there are all Silksong areas ranked against each other. Would be amazing if you shared some of your own rankings or opinions in the comments. Please just remember that this is my opinion. I'm sorry if you think Bilewater is the worst thing ever made and should be removed from the game ASAP. But this is my opinion and my list, so I can do what I want with it. Alright, that's it now, goodbye. I'm actually so scared of what the Bilewater haters think of this list, oh god.